Good morning. I realized I was muted. Welcome to part two of coaching your kids through crisis series. I'm Jabaria Dent, and this is my husband, Dr. Charles Dent, and we are here this morning to help you deal with the feels that's going on in your household. Even if nobody in your household has caught COVID-19, we pray that your house is safe and healthy. To be sure, you have caught feelings, good, bad, and other with one another. And so, how do you help coach your children through COVID-19? How do you help coach them through the feeling of isolation and frustration and all of the other Asians that they're feeling right now while we are in quarantine, shelter in place, stay at home, however your state, your government has coded it. It basically means sit down somewhere for a long period of time. So we want to help you deal with what your kid may be dealing with, what you may be dealing with, and give you some tools and some tricks to help you get through this season in your life.
But it also can be a time of motivation and determination and inspiration. It can be a time of meditation. It can be all those other times as well. It's how you address your situation. And I think what we're trying to do is give you the tools that you need so that you can be successful during this time, because I think it's a place of inspiration. Just totally can help you look at some things you need to do with your kids and with yourself during this season, because I know it's a season.
It is. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share our screen with you so that you can see the presentation that we have. And so this presentation is part of our Principles from the Playbook. It's our new book that we're in the process of writing. We're actually writing it as we do these seminars, as we do workshops around the country. We are putting together these principles from feedback from our participants, from things that we deal with in our own home. And so dealing with the fields is part of the Principles from the Playbook. And we are, for those of you who I haven't had we are the Dents. And I always say you have the power to write your own story. So write one that your children will want to read. My husband is often quoted as saying, you don't have to raise perfect kids. We just have to raise healthy ones. And so as New Level Parenting, our company, we are a Christian lifestyle company. And our goal is to help equip and engage and empower parents to build strong families. And we do that by just simply helping parents do three things. Clarify your values. What is important to you? Where's your treasure in life? Because the Bible says that where your treasure is, that is where your heart is going to be. So what do you value? Helping you to clarify that in real concrete terms. Help you create vision for your family, to help set the compass and the direction that you want to take your family. And it first starts by you knowing where you want to go, because as the parent, you're going to lead your children. And then lastly, how do you cast your vision and communicate effectively with your family, with your children, and with those within and without your family? So those are the things that we do as a company to help parents build strong families. So today we're going to kind of map through some things, what we're going to cover in today's webinar. We're going to talk about social emotional intelligence. What is social EQ or emotional intelligence? The psychology 101, how does your child's brain develop? Because there is a science component to this. There's science and then there's spirit. There's a science behind how we develop as human beings and how trauma impacts that development in the brain. Which leads us to what's going on in the brain of your teenager. What are they thinking about right now? And you believe it or not, it might not be what you're thinking about right now. They have a totally different agenda in life. And so how do we help get on the same page? And then finally, helping your student make straight A's. And we're not just talking about in school, but how do they make straight A's in life? We're going to help you coach them through the emotional development during this crisis. So let's get started. So when we look at social emotional health, you'll hear that is a buzzword in the educational community, social emotional learning. As educators, we hear it all the time in the school where we work. How do we help our children do basically 5 things? How do we help build self awareness? How do they know how to recognize emotions within themselves, their thoughts and behaviors? How do they clarify that? And then how do they manage that? Being able to successfully regulate your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Just because you feel a thing doesn't mean you act on that thing or the way that you act on that thing. And how does your thought life impact your emotions? And Dr. Den will get into that in just a moment. How what you think impacts how you feel. And then social awareness, taking into account how other people may be feeling in that moment. And that is where a lot of our preteens and teens, they lack. Because in that moment, it's all about them, how I feel, what I want, what I need. And the social awareness piece of it comes with both coaching and development and time.
And then also that piece back to the social awareness, you'll find out where your values play a major role in that. And so that's why you go back to the reality of creating those values, because in your social awareness, it really, those values really do help.
And then in relationship skills, how do they establish and maintain healthy and rewarding relationships on both sides of the equation?
Right.
And then lastly, responsible decision making. Mm. That is the part many of us are still waiting on our kids to get.
Well, and you think about it, you think about everything that our kids are dealing with right now in this whole COVID-19, in this, they're making decisions. They're making mental, they're making emotional, they're making physical decisions. Whether we see it or not, we can see that they're constantly making decisions. So sometimes we got to really create that skill. And these are skills, I think, relationship skills, all these skills that we're talking about, is sometimes they were not properly developed in us. And so we make the assumption too many times about everything in life that we are good at making decisions as well. We have set certain boundaries for relationships, and we go back to our own self-awareness, social, and all these, how do we manage our emotions even in this crisis as well? Because some of the things that we hear people are saying during this time, it's sometimes not healthy, but it's a good thing to be in this, because you find out what's really on the inside of you during this season. You know, like how people talk about the government, how people talk about other things else. This, I think the whole thing is it shows us more about ourselves than what's going on outside of us. And so yeah, I love when we look at this.
Awesome. So, how do you develop your emotional intelligence? How do you make straight A's? Because the truth is, we can't coach our kids in something until we dealt with it ourselves. And so, making straight A's, we just set an acrostic that simply means acknowledge how you feel. You have to acknowledge your emotions. Be honest when you're afraid. Be honest that you're unsure of what lies ahead. You know, this is a very stressful time. People have lost jobs. People have lost their businesses. People are afraid of losing their homes, losing their apartments because they don't have the income coming in. That is a very stressful and a very scary time.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid, guess what your children are feeling?
Well, and sometimes I think we fail to see that our feelings can project on our children. And so if we're not certain about the panic we're in, we're not dealing with the fears that we have, and we're not looking at it honestly. I mean, we are in total denial of this. I think the difficulty happening with us is that sometimes we're not even in a safe environment where we can express our feelings without people judging how you feel. And then it's like if you're really angry about something and you're really angry about this, how do you express that to other people? How do you express that to your kids without them thinking you're really angry at them, that everything is personal? But the frustration within this, and I think that's where the trauma comes. I think that's when the uncertainties of life is happening among us now. We're uncertain about what's going to happen tomorrow. How long this COVID-19 is going to happen? Is it going to affect us? Is it going to hit us? And then you hear, like in Mobile, there recent report last night that is really hitting the Afro-American community. And everybody's talking about this. And because if you ask yourself certain questions, what are my fears in this? How do I feel in this situation? That pandemic really means panic. There's a panic about this. And if we're not acknowledging our fears, and we're not acknowledging how we get, guess what's happening? It's going to increase the stress level on us. It's going to increase the disease in us, the sickness. It is going to reduce our immune system. Now we can't fight against the COVID-19 because our immune system is down because we're feeling a certain way. And I think this is very important. Everybody's emotional IQ is serious in this situation, baby. And I think if you look at the whole pandemic situation, how many people are really honestly saying, I am frustrated with this. I am disappointed. I am hurting in this. I am fearful I'm gonna lose my house. I'm gonna lose my car. I'm gonna lose because I'm losing income every day. Is the government really gonna bail us out? We hear this, is they really gonna help us, the people, or we just gonna bail out banks and other places and not help the people? So it is kind of frustrating. So.
And once you acknowledge how you feel, you have to assign your emotions. And what I mean by that is, as Charles was talking, he was talking about how we take it out on our kids. And the truth is, many times we assign our emotions to frustration, and then we take it out on other people who had nothing to do with our situation. You know, it is not our children's fault that we have this coronavirus pandemic.
Right.
But a lot of times they feel like it's their fault because of the way we respond to them, because of the way we treat them. You know, they still want, their favorite type of cereal, and you're sitting here looking at your grocery list trying to adjust and try to find where you can cut corners. And so they come and say, Mom, why can't I have my Captain Crunch? And you like, this week is not in the budget. And that may be very true, but in the way and how we address our children or respond to them may make them feel like, hey, what did I do? It is somehow my fault that we can't get my Captain Crunch.
Now, and that comes back to that self-awareness, that comes back to, I'm assigning my emotions to what? And then I have to come back and ask myself this question. That's when we're talking about this. I assign my emotion to my fears. And so I'm fearful, and I'm telling people, babe, I'm fearful what's going to happen. And being honest with that, because I think a lot of time when you look at the whole fact that this change that's happening, that we will sometimes live in denial of what's really going on. I mean, hey, some people may not even have a budget. This may be the season you get one.
If you don't have a budget, get one.
Yeah, because it might be the season. Don't look at your budget based on how much money coming in, how much going out. You just start creating a budget. I mean, because why? It helps you get a general picture. And maybe this is a season you do that. Maybe this is a season as you assign your emotions and like, hey, I'm really fearful for this, and I'm really afraid of this. And be honest with you. Now, I know my biblical church people will get in there. Well, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but the reality is I'm living with fear.
And the reality is fear is an emotion. Living with the spirit of fear means we allow fear to control us. It is an incessant, never-ending state of panic. That is the sin. But fear can also be a gauge that says, hey, fear is what gets us out of dangerous situations.
Right.
Fear is a healthy emotion when it is leveraged correctly. Fear of, look, I might not need to spend this extra $150 because I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from. That fear can help lead you into wisdom. But what we're talking about is you don't live with the spirit of fear.
Well, and that's when you come back to, baby, that there's just a couple fears that are natural for us. Like fear, like babies grow up, they fear noise, they fear a fall. And those are natural things that will happen. But the other fears, like we adopt from other people. You know, I mean, we really pick up the fears of other people around us because we constantly hear in the conversation, I'm afraid this is going to happen, this is going to happen. But I'm not, in the biblical sense, I'm not hearing words of faith that, hey, even in this, we can come out on the other side of it. And so the thing is, what becomes that dominant voice that crowds my mind also takes over my emotion. So if I'm not careful, is what I'm constantly listening to. I remember I was telling one person, they said they sick and tired of President Trump and his tweets and everything. I say, stop listening to him. I mean, just turn it off.
Just skip over.
You have control over that. Turn it off. You don't have to sit there and listen to all the negativity and everything that comes with that, because you start programming yourself because it starts coming out your mouth. You start programming yourself because now I haven't assigned my emotion. And please, parents, please, who are listening to us today, be very conscious of the assignment that you have given your emotions. Be very conscious of that and be really conscious of it.
And once you assign your emotions and you know what the root cause of them are, whether it's fear, whether it's tiredness, whether it is frustration, whatever that root is, then you need to adjust. You need to act on in a healthy way, being able to manage your behaviors, that whole part of self-management, being able to adjust where you need to adjust, and being able to make amends where you need to make amends. And what I mean by that is sometimes you need to go back and tell your children you're sorry. You know, I'm sorry that I lashed out at you. It wasn't your fault. You know, mom just can't afford the Captain Crunch this week. We'll get back to Captain Crunch hopefully in a month or two. But right now, we're gonna have to eat Captain O's, whatever the non-bread version is. Yeah. But adjust and make amends. And so we have to adjust our actions. As Charles was saying, this may be the time when we meet. I never had a budget. It was all in my head. Now we need to put that thing to pen and paper. We should have always been putting it to pen and paper. But now you really need to sit down and adjust our behaviors, adjust our responses in a way that will be healthy for our kids.
Now, and think about this. Let's hit the adjustment and make amends. One of the things that this COVID-19 is, it's forcing us to adjust. It's forcing us to adjust our finances that we probably put it off for so many years and say, hey, and now it's making us make the adjustments. And sometimes we don't like these adjustments, but they're making us have an adjustment. Why? Because on the other end of this, you want to be healthier. That's the whole goal. Is as you go through this, you want to make inroads to becoming healthy, a healthier parent, healthier family, healthier children. Because if we make amends and say, "Hey, babe, I'm sorry for reacting this way. I'm sorry for doing this. Please forgive me," and then let's make some adjustments to this. You know what I mean? Just adjust. Hey, you can't eat out. You can't get apps and just go pick up food every day. You got to say, "Hey, we got to cook." I love that little commercial with the little girl, mom told her she had to start cooking. She said no deliveries, no nothing. And the kids have got upset because she got to eat her mom's cooking. But the key thing is you make the adjustments and just find ways to adjust.
Awesome. So let's shift. We want to walk in your child's shoes. And I love this African proverb. And it says, an elephant's head is no load for a child. And so a lot of times we place on our children a burden that they're not ready to carry yet. And so how do we avoid doing that? I don't want to spend a lot of time in this, but I do want to touch on this because as the brain develops, study after study has shown that trauma impacts brain development. And it can actually hinder our children's learning. It can actually, because they're operating in a state of trauma, and whether we choose to admit it or not, for our children, this is a traumatic event. I mean, think about it. No other time in our recent history have we had a situation where we basically shut down and the country is shut down. And this is traumatic for children. Think about your teenager, those of you who have seniors. They're not going to have prom. They're not going to have a baccalaureate. They're not going to have a senior breakfast.
Mm.
They won't have, many of them won't even have a commencement exercise. Their diploma saying that the last 13 years of their life, what should have been a culminating event where hundreds, if not thousands of people were clapping and applauding for them and helping to celebrate a huge milestone of achievement in their life, will be reduced to an envelope being sent in the mail.
And so I'm gonna tell you, I think something very unique they will carry with them in their future is that this changed a lot of things in life. And some parents, to be honest with you, babe, some parents may be saving money because they didn't have to pay for all this. And they can shift that money towards other things they need to do now. I mean, look for the good that can come out of the situation. Yes, that's the reality of this. You have to get to a place that even in trauma, you acknowledge that. This, yes, we acknowledge this. The frustration of it is the frustration leaves when you get to the place that you're at this stage, you say, I can acknowledge, yes, this is happening.
And that comes with communication.
Right.
But the part of this slide that I do want you to see is where a lot of our children are. That 12 to 22 year olds, the prefrontal cortex of our brains is the place in our brains that weighs out long-term consequences. It is the place that makes choices and decisions, but it is affected when it is stressed. And so as parents, what our children need during this time is for us to give them choices when they're calm. They can't make decisions when they're upset. And in fact, most of us can't make decisions when we're upset.
Well, we do make them, but not good decisions.
Yeah, good decision making. Remember, the relationship skills is good decision making. And then talk to our children about plans. Let our children in on the plans of what's going on in your family. Look, if you've lost your job or you've been furloughed, if you're sick and battling this COVID-19 illness, don't try to hide it from your children. Don't try to operate as business as usual. This is the time when you need to sit them down and communicate. Let them know a plan. Believe it or not, they may help you be able to give great ideas and insight into the plan. Call everybody around the table and say, hey, this is what we're facing. This is what it's looking like. We need to come up with a plan as a family. And then help our children break down big things into smaller steps. And sometimes we have to help our children see the other side of the coin. As Charles said, yes, you may not be having a baccalaureate and all this thing, but guess what? That $450 senior fee is getting refunded to us. And so now that's going to allow us to do this and this and this with those funds.
Right. And then think about this, I remember as you think about the subconscious, conscious, and how we program our kids and what is programming our kids and what program you as an adult. And sometimes I never forget this. I think about how they say eating the elephant. And I remember I call it my mom's broccoli. Why you wouldn't serve us broccoli? Because she didn't like it. Sometimes we don't give our kids something because we don't like it. And we don't realize it's going to benefit them regardless if we like it or not. Sometimes we look at it, it's like, okay, how's my kid getting programmed? Because on the average household, I was thinking about this, and this is something I'll just share with you guys. I said, okay, now you got 6 months out of the year to educate your kid. Now there's everybody people used to homeschool, people homeschool their kids. This didn't change too much for them because they were already homeschooling their kids. But this may be a chance for all of us to sit back and ask, how many books my kids are reading this season? How many times do I pick up a book to read or I read something else other than something to entertain me? But and that's for all those things, your thoughts, your memories, behaviors, your language, your touch, your visual, your processing skills and everything. A lot of times we don't say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna work on decision making this week. We're gonna work on how do we come about making good decisions. So what are the facts that we need to lay out? How do you weigh things to make decisions? And you need to ask your kids this. So how do you weigh things to make decisions in your life? So you can start challenging them to find out how they think through before they make a decision, and they go like, well, it felt good. It felt good. How did you feel? It made you feel good before you did it. You already felt how it's going to make you feel. So you can start looking at how is it that I make decisions and how is it my decision-making process has impacted them or not? So the brain development is critical because like what insurance cuts you back at 25 because the brain, you continue to develop the brain. And that's why the trauma, I mean, when you talk about concussions and how kids and everybody forget things and what is the trauma? The trauma is also like shock. It's like it's numbing the brain. I can't function like I need to function because I'm in a stage of shock. Oh, I can't deal with this. And so you have to see this, and I think this is very important so that you know how my kid is really feeling.
And our children need different things at different places in their lives. And so at different stages of their lives, the part of the reason I put this into our presentation is that what your 6-year-old needs from you is different than what your 11-year-old needs from you.
And you're a teenager.
And that is different than what your 15, 16-year-old needs from you. And so we can't treat all of our children as if they are at the same place of development. They're not. And so we're going to have to try to get down to their level, where they are, and help them process what is happening in their world. Because the way a 7-year-old is seeing this COVID-19 crisis is very different than the way a 17-year-old is seeing this COVID-19 crisis.
Yep.
But even our 6 and 7-year-olds, they feel the sting of isolation. I was reading in my Twitter feed yesterday how one parent says her 8-year-old has become increasingly clingy and increasingly nervous whenever she leaves the room or leaves them alone. They're very fearful. They hear the numbers, the death tolls on CNN. And as a child, as an 8-year-old, they haven't rationalized this pandemic in the way that we as adults have rationalized it.
Right.
What they may be fearing is, does this mean that my mommy or my daddy's gonna die?
Right.
And so what reassurances do you need to give them? None of us can promise mama's not gonna die. We don't know that. But what we can do is assure them that I'm here for you. I understand how you feel. I'm there for you. And to the extent that mommy and daddy can control it, we're not going anywhere.
And then the other thing about it, so reassure them by putting a mask on when you go out.
Right.
Do something like that so they know that you are conscious of them. And that becomes really important because your kids can be sitting there isolation and that all flowing through their mind. Because why? They're preoccupied with this. That's why I'll be honest with you, that's why I don't watch too much news. I don't watch all the stuff because I know what it's doing to my brain and I know what it do to my emotions.
And so you need to set, so that gets into our next slide is, so how do you coach your child in this moment? What does that coaching look like? So first, acknowledge how they feel. Help them own their feelings. And that's especially true for your younger kids because they might not have the words to wrap around how they feel. They might not have the language or the linguistic development to know exactly why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling or to be able to put it in words. But take the time to help them get through that. Maybe that's drawing a picture or using art. Whatever that is, help them acknowledge how they feel and assure them that their feelings are not signs of weakness. It's okay to be afraid in this moment. Mommy is sometimes afraid in this moment. And give them a judgment-free zone. As Charles was saying earlier, we might not have a safe atmosphere to acknowledge our feelings, but you need to create that for your kids and for yourself. Give yourself a judgment-free zone so that you can be free to express how you feel and create that for your kids.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you this, I think that piece probably is more powerful if you can go back to your own life. That when you felt that way, your parents would shut you down, send you to your room, put you in a place of isolation, and not allow you to vent. And I think that sometimes that we struggle with that because we don't know how to handle their feelings. We don't know how to handle somebody else venting. So we'll have a tendency to shut it off before they can get it out. And so I mean, I never forget when I was talking to this couple. And I said, you got to create an atmosphere. You got to create an environment so that when you are frustrated and you are angry about something, you and your husband, your wife, y'all can express that anger to each other without somebody saying, well, you doing this, you doing that. Well, so I can never express my anger to you. So that's why I always knew that the best place to find people who can express your anger, I'm gonna be honest with you, was at a bar. I mean, because why? The bartender got good tips and everything. Because when I used to do work that, I found out a lot of people express their problems. They'll tell you everything because they didn't have that judgment-free zone at home.
We're not advocating that you go to a bar. We're just
Well,
saying.
that's just the reality. Some people like. I mean, just that's the reality. Some people like, and we're not just talking to people who are in church. I mean, really, because that's the reality. Some people like. You know, if I need to find an avenue, an exit for this, I need to find somebody who's, and I think that's where we judge people too much. And I think that's where religion and church get in the way of people being real with how they feel about things, because we want to put a limitation or a standard on their anger to make ourselves feel like we're in control of them.
Mm.
And we don't give them a chance to say, hey, this is how I feel.
Okay. And then the second thing is remember to help your children get to the root of their feelings and assign their anger a place. Help them place a time limit on worrying. You know, I've heard several psychologists, I've read several articles where they say, okay, if you're going to worry, place a time limit on. I'm going to worry about this issue for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. And then let them have that worry. Let them go down that road of worst case scenario. And, you know, say, okay, give it a time limit to worry. And then once that time limit is up, say, okay, we're done worrying about this. We're going to move on to something else.
So you can ask yourself in this worry process, what is the worst thing that can happen? In this COVID-19, we can die from. That's the worst thing you can happen. Your kids can be this way. And so if that's not happening, because some people are facing this, they have lost loved ones, and we don't want to make light of this, because the worst things happen in people's lives, they're losing their loved ones. That can be a reality, and you know that has been a reality. So as you put a time limit on what we're gonna worry about, okay, do that.
And then assign responsibility where it's needed. You know, this is not a get out of jail free card when misbehavior or disrespect or things like that happen. Assign responsibility, help them to learn how to take responsibility and ownership of their attitude and their behavior. Because just because I'm worried about something, that doesn't give me the right to be rude or be mean or be cruel or be disrespectful. Sometimes we have to separate the behavior from the attitude, but you have to address them both.
Right.
But it doesn't always have to be at the same time.
Right. Because like later, sometimes after it's over, let everything calm down and come back to it. Mm-hmm. You know, like you remember the thing, like, let's put this on the shelf, let it sit there. If it's not a life and death situation, you can put it on the shelf. Let it sit there a minute, come back to it later. When everything is calm, you can sit down and talk through it. Because a lot of times what people do, they become defensive. Mm-hmm. They ready to defend their action, their attitude, and say, no, you know what, we're gonna table this for a minute. We'll get back to it later. The key thing is that you do get back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, you know, as parents, we can't take on the attitude of our children.
Please don't.
Especially our teenagers.
Please.
So you come at me, so I'm gonna come back at you. That's not the time to do that. Let's help them get to the root of this. So what you're really saying, what are you really angry about? What are you really frustrated about? Yeah. Why are you really acting this way?
Yeah, because you have to, you know, she reminded me when it's calling thinking for change, to de-escalate the situation, to find out what is the root cause of you being angry at this person and this person. I mean, it's like when I used to be involved in fights in the Department of Juvenile Justice, when those kids used to fight each other, we had to de-escalate the situation and dig deeper to why they were lashing out at each other. And you know, I think sometimes parents need to develop those skills that you know how to de-escalate the situation, that your kid is yelling at you, and then you go like, wait a minute, what's going on to make this kid want to yell at me, to holler back at me? Maybe I'm hollering at that kid too much. And then I have sown this in their life, now I'm reaping the harvest from it. So now you learn how to de-escalate the situation, how you calm down, and then ask different questions in the whole list of it. And I think we're going to get to our next piece.
And then lastly is adjust. Help them look at things from a different perspective. And that's what we were talking about with, be it saving money, be it not going out as much. Help them to make amends and apologize when necessary, whether it's they need to apologize or you need to apologize. But make sure that we make amends, because guess what? We're stuck in the house with one another for at least another couple of weeks. Do you really want that attitude following you around the house for the next 14 days?
Yeah. Because that's one thing that I learned years ago, that there's no right and wrong. I used to tell couples who come for me for counseling, I tell them, first of all, let me establish some ground rules. First of all, there's no right and wrong. He's not right, he's not wrong. She's not right, she's not wrong. I said we need to hear each other's perspective, because everyone has a different way they see things. And sometimes we don't hear that and understand. That's how my brain is wired. I have a perspective on certain things that I see. I see it this way. Boy, you see it that way, but I see it this way. And I want to stick with my perspective. And sometimes we don't see it from each other's perspective because we're too busy trying to find out who's right and who's wrong. Your daughter may be just having a difficult time because she's not around her friends from school. And, they used to hang out at the cafe. My son said cafe or the cafeteria. They used to hang out with lunch. They used to do all those things, and they can't do that now. And they're not interacting with the people. They used to be involved in sports, and all that's been taken away from them. So you have to see things that the frustration may be setting in their life now because they've been away from it so long. And our kids are not used to this. Think about the adjustments that we're talking about need to be made. So you got to see things from different perspectives. It is like learning how to walk in the shoes of your kid again, remind yourself what it was like to be a kid. I was kind of rambunctious, or let's be real with it.
And so once we help our kids make straight A's, once we help them acknowledge, assign, and adjust, we're on the path to helping them deal with the feelings that are going on in their teenage brain, that is surging with hormones, that is still growing, that is still developing, and in the midst of a traumatic event like COVID-19.
Yeah, and I want to say this as I wrap mine up. I think I was telling my wife, I think the biggest thing is change has come. We can't stop the change that has come to our nation. Change is constant. Change is happening every day of our lives. That's external. But transitioning is internal. What is it that I need to change in me during this time? Because a lot of times people say, man, I want this to change. I want this to change. And here's my thought, and I'm going to say this again. Change, anytime change is going to start, it never starts with my wife. If I want my wife to change, it never starts with her. It's going to always start with me. If you want your children to change, it's not going to start with them. It's going to start with you. Anytime change is going to take place, it's never going to change external. The transition has to take place inside of us, because that's where change is really going to take place. It's going to take place in us when we decide, hey, there's something in my life I need to change. I need to acknowledge it, I need to assign it, but I need to adjust. What is it that is in me during this season with my kids, with my wife, with anybody else in life that I need to change? And I don't need to point fingers at someone else. I need to start making the changes inside me. Because here's the thing, I need to wash my hands more. I need to touch my face. I need to do some. See, that's why the change outside of us is making us transition on the inside of us. And that's why it changed my attitude. How do you know change is taking place in your life? Your attitude is the first thing that anybody would notice that has changed, is your attitude.
So as we close up, once we wrap this webinar up, there'll be a link beneath. Click on it, give us some feedback. Let us know how we did. Let us know if there's any areas that we can do differently, or things that you would like to see in future topics for our webinars. So please take a moment to fill that out. And we want you to join our family, join our New Level community. Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. And these are we just launched our newlevelparenting.com. It'll link you back to our website, Dent Enterprises. But New Level Parenting will help keep you in the loop on articles and topics and blogs. to help strengthen you as parents as you deal with building and try to build a strong and healthy family. Coming in the near future, we're going to have the New Level community, which will be a subscription base where you can be a part of New Level family nights, for parent only date nights, and exclusive content on our website and on our Facebook page. So please stay tuned for that. That's coming up in the very near future. And thank you so very much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. God bless you. God keep you. Goodbye.